Anthony Moyles is with us. We put the All-Ireland contenders in the amber a little bit earlier on in the performance rankings because it's tricky. Everybody's wading through a bit of treacle at the moment.
Yeah, lots of treacle. And Mayo had to wade through a fair bit of it at the weekend. It's kind of, last week everyone was I suppose buoyed by Mayo and what they've done. Certainly I was, but Louth showed a little chink, and I think it showed a chink that the likes of Derry and some of them will kind of go, oh, okay,
yeah,
this is what we can do. No, it wasn't the best Mayo team. No, there's definitely to be able to beat that situation that Louth presented them, you need an awful savage amount of pace at 5 and 7. That's bar none. And you can see the difference when Durkin came on. You need half-backs who are willing to take on their men and go past their men and then ask questions inside. If you're just continuing lateral with the passes, shifting it on to the guy, well then, you're inside. Your defence that you're facing will just be, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. And Louth had a good few goal opportunities. They had a lovely one-on-one where a beautiful little backdoor cut, ball played in, goalkeeper made a really good save. I don't think they were ever winning the game, but they could have presented much more problems for Mayo, and Mayo could have been caught. So he's trying to manage, obviously he's trying to manage his panel, as everyone is, but they'll learn. They should learn a lot to kind of say, okay, we need to change things up here. And maybe he's holding a few cards back as well, Ger. I think there's a bit of that going on. I think there's a bit of that going on this weekend with maybe the top teams. Because probably they have to. Well,
the injuries is and that's the feeling out. Let's just briefly talk about the mad. Now everybody's complaining about the fact that we're getting to see too many games and too much football, and they're saying, "Oh, the crowds are disappointing." It was the nicest day of the year on a bank holiday weekend when a lot of people might have decided that maybe they can watch it on the telly or listen to it on the radio and go and have life. Because there are other things too.
Exactly.
But this is a league. We're in the league section, and then there's going to be playoffs and championship finals when everything will be decided. But in the league section, all you're really doing is making sure that all the bad teams get knocked out, and so we'll have good teams and some not great teams in the preliminary quarterfinals. But shut up, everybody, I think, giving out about the system until it's over. And then, because here's the thing, people are poisoned against this now. We might end up having the only good quarter-final weekend in the last 20 years. This year, the first one, the 2010, there was a great quarter-final weekend.
Well, we had Galway Armagh last year, but you
but
get
the whole
rare.
Weekend.
Yeah, the whole weekend. Yeah. You usually get 2 maybe out of 4.
It's very lucky if you get 2. Yeah. Normally you get 1.
Yeah,
and
true.
After that, if you get a second one, you're thinking, "Oh, this is amazing."
Yeah.
A second good game.
Yeah,
but actually, this is just the league. This is
and I saw so there's 2 aspects to that. I suppose there's the game, too many games. There's a couple of aspects. Too many games, the quality of the games, the attendances, and then also the structure. And Jesus, let's go again. Once more with feeling. I actually don't know. Maybe there's something really obvious that I'm just not seeing. But every single team practically is going into this last weekend with something to go for.
Clare are the only ones who were knocked out, totally out. Yeah.
Okay. So that's a result, if you ask me. If we sat down last year and said, right, people are giving out about dead rubbers, and they're saying that really the last weekend is all about just throwing out your second or third team if you're in the ascendancy. The other team, half the lads are gone to America, and it's a waste of time. So how do we fix that? Fixed. You 15 out of 16 potentially go, and whether I do see people saying, well, teams who have lost once or twice or who haven't won or 3 could still end up. Well, that's the way it is.
Yeah, but they're going to get killed in the preliminary quarter-final. That's what's going to happen.
That's
more
what's
than
going to happen. So is there a little small tinker that you do where say the top 2 go in or something like that? That's a possibility. I don't think I think you're right, Ger. Busiest weekend at Dublin Airport this weekend, right? Look, I mean, the fact of matches on TV, the fact of people will go to the beach with the kids, there's so much different aspects of it. And is it turgid a fair?
You said Clonus was great.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Entertaining football, both teams going for it, load of scores.
That was Monaghan Clare for anybody who's of course.
Well, I would argue, and I kind of mentioned this weekend. there was a spell there where football was absolutely terrible. Like, you don't have to cast your mind back that far. You know, where it was catch and kick, loads of turnovers, giving the ball away. Like, the athleticism and the skill set of the modern player is by far the best it has ever been. Right? You're seeing players play, having the ability to do things that looks kind of just normal now, that would have been abnormal 15, 20 years ago, right? It would have been the special few. Yeah. And then you have fellas who are the special few, such as Clifford, who are doing things that you have never seen, and you wouldn't have seen even 15 or 20 years ago. So all of the different things, all of the levels are being raised, the athleticism, the conditioning. That's why teams are able to stick with these bigger so-called teams of the last 10 or 15 years now. So all of that work is being layered on, and you're not going to change it overnight. Like, the teams that take most of the risk reward, the teams that are more I think attuned to actually, say, going for the jugular, the teams that are, but also are quite controlled in certain ways, they're the teams that are ultimately winning, and the teams that can transition the ball fastest from one end of the field to the next by kick or by hand, certainly by kick, because people are realising that they're the teams that are mostly winning games, right? And who have the forwards to shoot, whether you're putting them in a zone or whatever it is. So therefore the template is there. Playing conservative lateral football will not win you games. Ultra defensive, it just won't. Yeah, that's proven. So how do I get to that? Now, some teams have said, well, we're not quite there yet. Like Mickey Hart said, this is an unbelievable achievement for Louth to get within whatever it is of Mayo, and I think he's correct in saying that. You know, he's saying we were still in the game in the last couple of minutes. Yeah, and he said we weren't in the game against Dublin. They were blown out of it because they tried to go toe to toe. So we said, well, we want to set ourselves up for, like, they were, you know,
when you point in at the end,
point in it. Yeah. You know, so different teams. You can't just go. But look, I mean, how many times ago, not that long ago, teams were playing Dublin and say, "Oh, why did they go for it? You know, they should have just set up defensive. Should have got by 25 points." Now teams are going, "Oh, you shouldn't set up defensive. The teams should be going for it. It's not a spectacle. You know, it's not good for us as fans." Personally, if I'm training my off 6 times a week, I want a chance.
Yeah.
It's funny, it was one of the things I noticed as well watching the Kerry highlights, and even in Clonus as well, the scoring zone in Gaelic football has just got further and further out from goal. Like Monaghan and Clare were popping scores from outside the 45, even at different points. It's like the game has changed in that degree. I also agree with you on the halfbacks. Like Derry were scoring goals, like their wing halfbacks were scoring goals. Like Conor McCarthy scored a goal and 2 from Monaghan from wing halfback. Yeah. Like the team that wins the All Ireland this year are going to have, as you say, 2 quick, fast wing halfbacks.
Yeah, and I tell you one thing as well. It's vital. I watched the Meath Down game on Saturday. Very evenly matched game. Daithí McGowan kicked 2 rakers of 50s. The 50s nearly should be put out to the 60 now. These guys are they're even tapped them over. But one thing that is very evident, and again, you watch even the Louth game. Mulroy missed a few chances. Similar to Kildare as well, Ger, at certain times you need a free taker, like rugby now. You know, the rugby stats come up, you have to be at 85%, 90% plus, because the game has become so controlled at certain times that when you're coming in and breaking those lines and the referees are giving frees, whether you're buying the frees or they're genuine frees, those frees all have to be just bang. So in other words, it's literally saying wherever nearly in that 50 metre line, whether it's far left, far right, you can't foul because this guy's just going to get it. And actually, that could be the difference when it comes to it. The best teams will have the most efficient and best free takers.
I think that's why they're putting Dean Rockstraight back in. I think
there you go,
because there was a few games there where he wasn't there and they weren't quite sure what was happening. And again, the efficiency comes down to between 55 and 75, and you're like, that's not acceptable. You can't win All Ireland with that.
Correct.
What about Kerry then? Where are they? So obviously there's a shock to the system against Mayo, and nothing like a trip to Cork. In fairness, we were slagging off the Kerry media mafia, say, is Cork going to put it up? And Cork did put it up to them. Yeah. So the Kerry mafia were correct to be scared heading into the game.
They were, yeah. I thought Cork were really, really hard done by. I thought they could have and should have got something out of the game. I thought the penalty, and people will argue that okay, it does not. I think the rule is that it does not have to be a clear goal scoring opportunity. I'm kind of flummoxed still, because if that's the case,
it's one of those. If it's given against your county, you're not happy.
So John Fogarty has it in the Examiner today. In the opinion of the referee, the player fouled, or in the case of Rule 512 infraction, to deliberately collide with an opponent after he's played the ball away, or for the purpose of taking him out of the movement of play his team had, and was denied of the opportunity to score a goal when the infraction was committed. Very clear.
Yeah.
It's written so that the lawyers can get anybody off under anything later on.
Exactly.
It's designed for the...
It's because it's a very hard one. When you slow it down, and of course everything is always, you see a hit in slow motion and you're like, oh, but then of course you see it in real time, it's different. There's no doubt about it. As Geaney comes into the tackle, he switches the ball into his left arm, and he rides, he goes into the cornerback or whoever it was a Powter, and he goes down. Yes, Clifford is across. There's two Cork fellas coming back who in real time, you speed it up, who would have got there, who would have made it a very difficult hand pass for him, which is off his left, going across the goalkeeper, with then Clifford coming in on his left. So I thought it was harsh, but in more general terms, I thought Cork gave them plenty to think about. Lots of speed, lots of pace. Again, I think Cork, when the crunch came to it, Hurley missed two frees on the left-hand side of the post. Sherlock come on, missed another free. We get back to that efficiency level. I really think Kerry are stuttering. They're stuttering big time, Jared. There's Clifford is standing head and shoulders above the rest of them. Gainey looks like he has about 40 minutes in him, and then he blows up. Paddy Clifford is playing this quarterback thing, but once you get a sticky corner back on him, you just say, listen, follow him everywhere. Just miter him. Just put him out of the game. Then I'm going, Moynihan, not really doing it for me. And I think they're 10 and 12. First of all, they're not really working hard enough, and neither are they impacting the game from a forward offensive point of view. I thought their midfield
O'Shea was pretty good.
Sean O'Shea was good, but again, he drifted out of the game in the last 25-30 minutes of it.
And
by the way, like after that, I think I saw a stat outside of the black card. Like Cork gave them a good old Tonkin. Like Cork were massively diminished when the black card occurred, and then the goal, and they were kind of going, Jesus, this isn't. It was just. I thought it was a very, very patchy performance by them, and I think I'd say if you're Jack O'Connor, you're worried. You're genuinely worried. You're kind of going, I do not see our identity here. I don't know what we are. Bar get the ball to David, and he hopefully will do it for us.
They're going to be playing every week now, unless Mayo. They're going to be playing every week, basically. Is that the worst thing for them in a way, that they actually there's no time to think? They're going to have to sort this out. Would you rather a break?
I it's a tricky one. I think they need to unearth someone from the bench. Young Murphy came on, again, shifted on a lot of ball, didn't do anything major that you would be worried about from a defensive point of view. They don't have enough guys who are standing up and saying, listen, I'll win it for you. It literally seems to be, well, we have the best forward in the country, so what am I doing shooting? Like, what am I doing trying to impact the game? I'm just going to try to get him a ball. Now, to be honest, most of the time that works. Like, you can imagine the video reviews going, why did you take that shot? Like, David was within 20 feet of you, just get it to him. So it is a hard one, but they're going to have more of a spread when it comes to the crunch, and that's outside of Clifford and Sean O'Shea. They're going to have like the best Kerry teams of old. Different fellas would chip in with points. You'd have fellas getting 2 to 3 regular around the field, and you'd have different guys coming off the bench who would ask questions of you. I just don't see it. I don't see the bench. I don't see the depth. Fellas who come on and do an okay job. They're not bad footballers. They'll come on and they'll work and they'll blah blah blah. But will they impact and be able to break down a Derry defence with Derry 2 or 3 points up?
Hard to see it. I mentioned this morning the 2009 Kerry team. Jack O'Connor's been here before, like having a mediocre enough Kerry team and shoots of
they were
good squad, obviously.
They were an all-time great team, but the form was terrible.
And then
the lads went drinking and found their form somewhere in different pubs.
Yeah, a bit of bonding.
And then they met us. And we gave the ball away continuously. But it was funny. It is I suppose a slightly.
They played you in the semis that year, did they?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Start Learwigs is the quarters on the August Bank Holiday weekend.
Yeah. Played us in the semi. And actually it was a game, we were well in that game, and we actually, if you're doing stats on the game, we probably had more possession than they had. It was a greasy day. It was warm, and then it lashed rain, and it was one of those days where and we just, at the amount of times we just kicked ball out over the end line, trying to play fast football. But I don't know what was in it in the end, but it was just one of those games. But we actually, we really thought we'd take them.
4 points in at 2-8 to 1-7.
Yeah, it was it was a low scoring game.
Feast of attacking football. Back in the glory days.
Yeah, but basically just kicking the ball away. Probably both teams.
Cian Ward got the goal in stoppage time, the Meath goal. But still,
yeah. I gave a penalty away. Thanks. Yeah, I just saw that there. Thanks for highlighted. I don't know where they are. I'd say I don't know, Ger, whether it's take a break, but I think they need to. There's no bolter, there's no guy who, maybe they have someone down in Kerry, but there's no one I can see who's a mercurial type of fella who's just going to come in. Like Tony Brosnan isn't doing it, right? He's not. He's been tried, and whether his confidence has dipped, but the first couple of times, he was all going well. It was all no, Tony Brosnan can do this type of thing, and now he's gone. And I thought he was going to be the guy to kind of unlock defences. So I think they are struggling a bit, and for me, the way they performed, they're not winning All Ireland.
Well, they're going to have a tricky preliminary quarter final, and then if they win that, they're going to have a very tricky quarter final against Dublin, Galway or Derry, more than likely.
Wow, yeah.
Because they lost the Mayo game.
Kerry Louth in a neutral venue somewhere in the middle of the country in the last game, and if Louth beat them,
Kerry are gone.
Yeah, but Louth aren't going to beat them.
No, I don't think Kerry. Louth won't beat them. That's actually probably the best game for them, because Louth will set up ultra defensively, such as the weekend. Will try to catch them on the counter attack, and Kerry will be able to work on the systems of breaking down that defence. Now they'll want to get a big enough pitch. Sorry, it's not a foregone conclusion.
No,
completely, it's not, because Louth are there on merit, and Louth could very easily. Well, sorry, not very easily. It will be tough for them.
Mickey Hart dumping Kerry out of the championship in the last round?
No, I'd love to do it. Of course.
Oh, Jesus.
But
can't see it. But if that's the permutations, well, I think that's where it ends.
Yeah. I don't know if you can be drawn. I presume you can't be drawn against a team from your group in the quarters. That would be madness if you can. So I don't know if that's seeded or not, but otherwise they could face Mayo again in the quarter final. But that's it. There are good teams in all of the groups.
Yeah.
And they have not finished first in their group, which was their job, to get the week off between the preliminary and the actual quarter final itself. So everybody has this week off, and then next week is the final round of games. The week after that is the preliminary quarterfinals, and the week after that is the quarterfinals. So 3 games in 3 weeks. And if you didn't win your group, you're playing in 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, even with Dublin and Kildare. I know Glenn Ryan was very annoyed post the game about Kildare's performance. I actually thought Kildare had a decent first half, and I thought they still tried in the second half. Yes, there was lapses of concentration, but Dublin learned from the Leinster game big time, and what they learned was, in that game, Kildare had learned from the previous year, which is that Dublin liked to attack down the wings, and so they blocked that out by numbers. But this time Dublin said, "Oh, okay, you blocked that out, we'll go straight down the middle." The amount of scores they got where they actually just went straight down the middle, Kildare didn't adapt quickly enough. And Kildare had no bench, did no impact again off the sub. Like Kevin Feely came on, was pretty innocuous. Flynn came on, did what he does, which is the sublime mixed with the frustrating, and they just didn't have guys that could come on and make a big difference. But Dublin, on the other hand, it's an interesting tweak from Farrell. You mentioned Dean Rock. I didn't think Dean. I've been there before. as the twilight of your career comes, you try to do the devil and all. You're trying to be in the backs, you're trying to kick scores, and what ends up you don't do, and you're getting more and more frustrated. When you're confident in your pomp, you're just going, give me the ball and I'll just do my job. And his job was put the ball over the bar. Now he's trying to do everything, and you see he's working hard and he's hard, but it's just not going for him. Whereas Pascal comes in and just goes, I'll tell you what, I'm going to try to really go at teams. And it's funny, I think Farrell is starting to go, I need to remove the conservatism from that forward line.
It's Kilkenny is the issue, right? And so he was injured and wasn't available, but people forget that he was dropped in the Derry game and comes on after 3 minutes because there's an injury that day as well. Yeah. So without him, like, he's obviously an incredible footballer, so is there a way of getting him in the team where he doesn't slow things up? You use him as a corner forward and his job is to finish, or is that getting in the way of Con?
Well, again, I'll go back to the very first comment we made at the start, which is about speed and that ability to break lines. So McCaffrey is one of your big losses, right? Don't know where Merchant has been. He's obviously must be injured, because again he has been that for them over the last number of years, where he brings that unbelievable pace. So if you don't have that, Ger, what's happening then is that you need it then certainly from your half forward line. So it's interesting to see Pascal. It's really interesting to see him in there, because he has that pace, and he has, like, one of the scores he got at the weekend was brilliant, where he's left and right. Kilkenny's conservatism could cost him a position, because it's like a lot of players you see playing. Do you remember David Batty, who played with Leeds?
Yeah.
The amount of time I used to sit watching him and kind of go, how's that man being paid the money he's being paid? Because he never ever kicked the ball forward. Sideways, back. Yeah, he was in there for a few crunch and tackle, but, like, I mean, you just knew. Like, I mean, the defence just go, don't worry, he's not going to kick it forward. Like, I mean, we don't have to. So there's that idea of when Kilkenny gets the ball, he's not asking enough questions for you. It's interesting to see that they pulled O'Callaghan out to 11. And I think Con O'Callaghan enjoyed that. I think he loved the freedom of that. You could see it in the performance. I think he's more dangerous there, especially if you have a team that are going to set up, say, such as a Derry, and they'll say, well, we'll go in there and we'll crowd out that full forward line on you. I think they're all. Farrell is trying to find that balance, obviously, but I think, Kilkenny, I don't know how you fit them into that system. I really don't. I think it's tricky.
They'll be relatively happy with where they are at the moment, Dublin. I mean, obviously everybody says they're still not, but they're easing off to second half victory in a game that was never really in doubt once they put the burners on in the second quarter. So will they be relatively happy?
I think they'll be relatively happy. Yeah, I think they'll be relatively happy. I think they've done what they need to do. Yeah. I still think they are probably in a situation where, when the crunch really comes on, and this is the thing about Kilkenny, that you can't. He is a proven winner. So what will happen is Farrell will sit there and he'll go, this guy here who's unproven. Yes, he's dynamic. Yes, he can do all those things. But when the pressure really comes on, can I rely on him, or can I rely on this guy, who I know, by the way, he's done it all before? Yeah,
but maybe he's an incredible sub to have to come on in games where you want to take the sting out of Mayo, get a run on you at some point, Tyrone get a run on you at some point. You're like, where's my cavalry? You're the guy. You're just going to get on, get possession, keep it for 5 minutes, and then we'll point at the end of it, do unto them.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
You watched, like, Roscommon, like, they've already beaten Mayo, they've drawn with Dublin, proper challengers.
Oh, well, we've said it the last couple of weeks, and I'm kind of fearful of blowing ahead in them, because we did it at the start of the league, and then they dropped her back into third gear. They are proper challenge, again, as I said, because they can play it whatever way you want to play it. If you want to go ultra defensive, that's no problem. We have the guys who we know we can put the ball into, who will get the scores. And do you know what I really like about him? He's obviously pretty ruthless, but ruthless kind of with a smile on his face. Like, Donny Smith wasn't fantastic. He messed up a few times against Dublin, right, where there was opportunities to flick off a ball. I don't know if you remember one kind of late in the second half, and I think he was holding his leg after it, but there was a great opportunity of a score, and he was gone this weekend. Now, he came on, but he was only, I think he was like the third or fourth sub. Like, he wasn't first man in. Now, he's a big name for them, and he will be a big name for them over the last number of years. So they're obviously kind of saying, listen, it's all about team here. You know, there's no individuals. Like even Enda Smith, who is a go-to man for them. Like he's linking all the time, and he's getting on the end of things, but he's doing his work. Like Jesus, I watched him in the last number of seasons, and you'd be kind of pulling your hair out because he would let fellas drift by him. Like he's working. They're all working their socks off. I think they have a really, really good shout.
Yeah.
Everyone's kind of waiting for them to fail.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's waiting for them to do the Roscommon of old, which is they nearly get there and then they just kind of they flitter away and they're gone.
I think
I don't see it.
No, and they're going to cause somebody in the quarterfinals, if they make it, all sorts of headaches. Because then they would have. They could play Mayo again. They could play Derry at that stage.
Yeah, any of those teams, they'd fancy themselves.
Yeah.
All
right.
And then they end up in a semi-final, and with the forward line that they have,
who knows?
Yeah.
Anthony, good stuff.
All right, cheers, lad.
Thanks a million.